You're behind the scenes with Aussie Youth.
You're watching The Crew. I'm Pat.
And I'm Jody.
Today we have a very special episode for you. Over the last 4 years, we've conducted training for Indigenous communities all over the country.
We've chosen several stories produced by our young Indigenous crew over the last year. These stories showcase their community and culture.
We start off with the Tribal Warrior program in Redfern.
We're out in the bush in Sydney as the team work to preserve Aboriginal carving and sites.
You're watching The Crew.
That's cool. Hey, yo, man. G'day everyone, we're here with the Tribal Warrior Mentoring Program and we're out in the bush today, and I've got Byron here to tell us a little bit what's going on today.
This morning we're out with the Tribal Warrior Mentoring Program in Redfern, and part of the growth that the kids learn to experience is to go into the bush, especially with the National Parks and Wildlife crew, to learn about bush rejuvenation and also to maintain and preserve the Aboriginal rock art.
This is the National Park Manager. Tell us about the program.
We've got a partnership program going on with Tribal Warrior, where we're getting Aboriginal youth to come out and help us find the sites that we've got on our maps, find them in the bush, have a look and see if there's any problems with them, work out what it takes to maintain them, record the sites, fix them up a little bit, get them in a condition where we can bring tourists in to have a look at this stuff too.
Boys, bring that rake over. Let's get this section here done, eh?
Hey, you going, Crew Indigenous, and this is Jeff from National Parks. Tell us about engraving, brother.
Yeah, so we're on the site here at Bobbin Head, part of Crew National Park. Just an engraving site that we have here, with a few figures, some footprints here, and a few animals. So we've just come out to do a bit of work on the site with you guys through our program. So it's one of the sites that we've come out to have a bit of a clean-up, because it's an open site where we have people come here and have a look at the site and learn about engravings. You know, it's a bit of an educational purpose to come out here and clean these sites up for people to have a look at.
Do we know anything about the mob that created this?
Yeah, so it's basically up in the Ku-ring-gai area, which is in the north part of Sydney. It's in the Ku-ring-gai National Park, like I said. And it's come from the Ku-ring-gai descendants from around this area of the North Shore area. It's not with a K as the Europeans pronounce it, it's with a G. So yeah, it comes from the Ku-ring-gai mob.
What's the best part of working in this environment?
It's hard to pinpoint one thing, you know. It's pretty good coming to work here. It's, you know, you guys have probably seen the best of it, where you get to get out and have a look in the park, and the other side carries a bit of the paperwork stuff, but you know, it might be the harder side of it, but it means getting groups like yourself involved in the park and getting outside myself and having a look around and discovering these sites. You know, these sites have been here for a long time and no one's been able to see them, and we can finally record them and know where they are and look after them how they need to be looked after.
Thanks for your time, Jeff.
No worries, thanks brother.
But this sort of knowledge is important to all Australians, but the best way to teach it to Australians is to teach it to people that got credibility and connection. We can draw pictures and give some basic history on the map from our side, but that's all academic. If it's not coming from the community, you know, the Indigenous community, it just doesn't have the same credibility. And you know, from a tourism point of view, we want to get employment out of this program as well. We want young guys to come up, get that knowledge and present it, because everybody overseas, they're hungry for this information, and it's good for the self-esteem of the rest of Australia too, to have all this good site stuff well presented.
Dubbo is the fastest growing city in the central west of New South Wales, with a history that dates back around 40,000 years.
Today we learn about some of this history and culture as we catch up with world-renowned Dig player Lewis Burns and elder Auntie Coral Peckham.
Hey guys, today we're in Dubbo here at the Talbot Reserve. We're going to be learning a bit about the Aboriginal culture. Let's take a look.
Burns, well-renowned Aboriginal Dig player. So what is it here that you're doing tonight, Lewis?
Basically, we're just putting on a concert. It's free for the whole community. It looks like we're getting a few rolling up, but it's a didgeridoo concert in conjunction with the World Didgeridoo Concert in support of Aboriginal people who are fighting for their land, fighting for their culture, and fighting for their language.
Tell us about the Aboriginal people in this area.
Well, we're standing on actually Talbragar Aboriginal Reserve, and this is the land where I come from and where all the people in my extended family come from. Nobody's living out here anymore, but we still hold it sacred in our hearts, and this is where a lot of us come to ground ourselves. We're at the northern end of the Wiradjuri Nation. It's actually one of the biggest tribal areas in Australia, and it's bigger than Tasmania in area.
Didge playing is a fascinating thing. Tell us how you actually play the didgeridoo.
Well, didgeridoo is basically your lips slapping together when you're playing. So you've got to put your mouth on the hole on one end and let your lips vibrate into the didgeridoo. It's not blowing, but it's more of an airflow.
Can you show us?
Yeah, well basically it's this action. And if I wanted to add rhythm to it, then I'd just do bursts of air with my lungs or with my tongue.
Circular breathing, what's that?
Well, it's actually playing the didgeridoo without stopping for air. So whenever you need air, you take it in through your nose. So you catch an air in your mouth, you spit that air out with your tongue and cheeks, like that, but you take air in through your nose at the same time. And you keep the drone going. So if you listen, I'll take a few breaths in while I play and you'll hear the breaths.
Thanks heaps.
Thank you.
Hi Nicora, can you please tell us the significance of the land?
Yes, I sure can. I'm the youngest of 5 children of Maisie Burns, who was my mother, who was born out here in 1915. I was born in Dubbo in 1948 and we lived in town by that time, but we used to come out every weekend and see all the elders. When I was a teenager, I wasn't allowed to vote, and neither was a lot of Aboriginal people. Back in the 30s, my grandfather went all over Australia fighting for the rights of Aboriginal people to be treated as equal. When they signed the paper to acknowledge the referendum, it was actually signed here on Talbragar. We also had another uncle named Tracker Riley. He was a black tracker, so us kids used to learn how to track, and I still do today, and I teach kids today. We live in a society, a multicultural society, and we learn about the Chinese and other different cultures, you know, and we should be respecting each other's cultures, including ours, our own.
Thanks a lot for your time, Auntie Coral.
You're welcome.
If you live in Australia and don't know about your Aboriginal culture in your area, do yourself a favour and find out. I'm Alinta. And I'm Amanda. And you're watching The Crew.
Don't go away, you're watching The Crew.
Welcome back. You're watching The Crew.
The Crew gives the opportunity for young kids all around Australia to have their say on national television.
So if you're school age and there's a story you'd like to see on the show, just get in touch.
Here are the details.
On today's show, we've been watching stories produced from our Indigenous training program.
To tell us more, here is our producer, Mr. Al Ellis. He's up in the control room. Hi, Al.
Hey, Jody.
So can you tell us more about the training program?
Yeah, certainly. Over the last 4 years, the crew's been involved in training Indigenous youth all around the country, in city, in remote and in rural areas. We work with groups of young people, teaching them the technology and techniques of video production and empowering them to tell their own stories.
So why do you want to focus on the Indigenous?
Well, the crew's supposed to be a showcase of all Aussie youth. Until recently, we didn't have a great deal of Indigenous involvement, and seeing as they are the original Aussies, it's pretty important to have them included.
So for you, Al, what's the best part of working with Indigenous crews?
You know, it's the learning that takes place, not so much with the kids themselves, but personally for me, I think. After all, you are interacting with the oldest culture on the face of the earth, so the things that you learn and the things that you see are really quite inspiring, informing, challenging and sometimes moving. It's been a very fascinating and enriching time.
So clearly you think that Aboriginal culture should be important for all Australians?
Well, yeah, Jodie, when you think about it, we're very familiar with the last 200 years of Australian history, but Australian history goes back maybe up to 40,000 years. Very important for us to understand that the history that's a part of the Aboriginal community is a part of our history as Aussies. Anyone that's an Aussie, really, we have some sort of ownership. So I think it's important for us to treat that history and a knowledge of that history as being something that's very special and very precious. The Aboriginal people are custodians of that knowledge. It's very important to give them a voice and to listen to that voice.
Definitely. Thanks, Al.
Yo, culture! Thank you.
Don't go away, you're watching The Crew.
Welcome back. This is our Indigenous special. You're watching The Crew.
As a part of our Indigenous training program, the Crew recently ran a workshop in Mount Gambier, South Australia.
We were joined by the South Australian Premier, Jay Weatherill.
Here's how the action unfolded.
This is the CEO of Pangoola Manamurna, Karen Glover. Please tell us a bit about what Pangoola does in the community.
Okay, Pangoola Manamurna is the Aboriginal Community Controlled Health Service, and we've got a clinic here. We've also got quite a few other programs like the Bringing Them Home for Stolen Generation business. We've got the Nunga Play Group, the youth program, and we've got a women's group, which is great. And we've just started the Strong Fathers program, and of course it's all underpinned by culture, Aboriginal culture, and that's through the Healing Circles project.
Where'd we go?
And why do you believe culture and community is important?
I think that the culture is really important in the community for identity and sense of who we are. Aboriginal culture brings a lot to not only for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities but for the general community as well.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Grosser here with the Premier of South Australia. Premier, why is strengthening Indigenous culture important to all of Australia?
Well, because everybody has to have a strong sense of their own identity. It's a really important part of well-being, and making sure that you can be a successful person is if you have a strong idea of who you are and where you're going in the world. So that's why we need to have really strong culture for Aboriginal people, and that's why some of your organisations down here are doing just a great job.
What's your advice to a young Aboriginal person wanting to make a difference in the world?
Well, the first thing is to dream your dreams and be the best you can possibly be, and just don't limit yourself about what you think you might be able to achieve for yourself and for your family and for your community.
Do you ever think there could be an Aboriginal Premier?
Absolutely, and to our shame we haven't yet had an Aboriginal Member of Parliament in South Australian Parliament, and that's something I'd like to change. I'd hope that our party might be the first party to do that, the Labor Party, but we encourage all political parties to try and promote Aboriginal candidates, and one day it will happen.
Yep. Well, thanks very much, Premier. That's all I've got for you today. All the best.
Thank you very much.
What sort of advice do you have for a young Aboriginal person in this community?
Come to Pangoola Manamurna, come and access the services here, come and be a part of the youth group. There's lots of fun activities, and as a part of that it's about learning to respect ourselves and respect our people and our environment, and come and be a part of that.
Well, thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
Ambladowitch is a small community 320 kilometres northeast of the Alice, right on the edge of the Simpson Desert.
The students at the local school have been involved in producing stories for the show for the last 3 years.
Recently, we've been training with them via Skype, and today the students bring us the story of Ambladowitch Outback Bakery.
We're here in Ambladowitch School. We're 320k northeast of Alice Springs. It's a very remote community. Here in the community, Ambladowitch kids from the school, middle years and seniors, have decided to conduct a bakery. It started off as a small cooking project inside the classrooms, and it's turned into a big enterprise, and they now run a bakery from the industrial kitchen at the shop.
How did you come up with the bakery idea?
Well, at the start of the term, we were doing cooking classes in the classroom with the middle and senior year students, and they really enjoyed the cooking classes, and so then we decided that we'd expand the idea, and we applied for an enterprise grant, and we received an enterprise grant of $4,000. So we were then able to start the bakery and work with the shop, the Orange store, to begin the bakery that the students run once a week.
We make cupcakes, breads, big cakes, muffins, and lots of little treats.
I like to cook and decorate cakes.
I like to read the recipes.
What did the students learn at the bakery?
Over at the bakery, the students learn literacy skills when they're reading the recipes. They learn financial literacy skills when they deal with the money. So they're the ones that collect all the money off the customers, and they have to give out change and everything like that. So they learn lots of good hands-on activities that they can take home and use after school at their houses. Well, this year the students have made just over $2,500, and that's just been in the 6 months they've been open for. The really exciting news that we found out recently is also that we've applied for a Youth Business Award, and we have been shortlisted to 2 schools, so we're really excited, and we're going for the awards ceremony next week.
We're out for a flower. You're watching the crew. You're watching the crew.
Well, sadly, that's all we have time for today.
Remember, if you want to catch up on today's stories, find us on our website at www.thecrew.net.au.
To take us out, we have our crew from Mbluttawitch on the edge of the Simpson Desert, Gangnam Style. I've been Jodie.
And I've been Pat, and you've been watching The Crew.
오빤 강남 스타일 강남 스타일 낮에는 따사로운 인간적인 여자 커피 한 잔에 여유를 아는 품격 있는 여자 밤이 오면 심장이 뜨거워지는 여자 그런 반전 있는 여자 너는 선호해 낮에는 너만큼 따사로운 그런 선호해 커피 식기도 전에 원샷 때리는 선호해 밤이 오면 심장이 터져버리는 선호해 그런 선호해 아름다워 사랑스러워 그래 너 hey. 그래 바로 너 hey. 아름다워 사랑스러워 그래 너 hey. 그래 바로 너 hey. 지금부터 갈 때까지 가볼까 오빤 강남 스타일 강남 스타일 오빤 강남 스타일 강남 스타일 오빤 강남 스타일 Hey, sexy lady.
This is how we do Gangnam Style.